Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. I'm so excited that you are all here for us to have the opportunity to talk about social equity, GIS, and how utilities can play a role in that. My name is Juliana McMillan-Wilhoit. I'm the CEO of Flourish and Thrive Labs. We are a firm that is dedicated to working at the intersection of health equity, social justice, and public health. And so I'm really excited today for us to have this conversation because I think that place and space matters. But before we get into that, the first thing that I want to do is we have a quick little demographic poll that should pop up on your screen. And these few questions are just going to be really helpful for us to be able to understand a little bit about who you are and who all is here. And so sorry, I'm just trying to pull it up here. So anyway, the topic for today, we're going to have some great presenters here. We have Randall, René, and Michael Brown from Esri. We have Vivek, who works with an AI company. And then we have Noah, who is with Bad Elf. And so all three of these presentations, or all four of these presentations, are really going to focus a bit on how social equity, social justice, that equity perspective matters so much when we think about utilities and how that spatial perspective matters. So let's just ground this for a second, right? Place matters no matter where you are. An example that I love to give is as we think about the internet is this very amorphous thing, right? I mean, some of you may be very familiar with sort of, putting in the lines for the internet. But there are some parts of the world where the internet goes out because sharks will actually eat through the internet cables. And that's an example of the geospatial perspective mattering. More close to home, we know of the examples of places like Flint, Michigan, or even Chicago, where I'm from, where we have issues with lead water pipes. And that's a utility issue, but that also we know really, really impacts the health of communities. And so we write that utilities can't get shy away from thinking about what does it look like to care for our for the people who you serve. And so that's part of why we are so excited to have the ability to have this conversation today. So it looks like we have such a great group of people who are here from all sorts of from all different parts of the United States. And again, if you have not had the opportunity to fill out that quiz, that would be great, just so we can have a little bit more of an understanding about where you are. So it looks like about that the majority of you are working for local government, about 66% of you. And so I'm thankful for all of you who work in local government and who are able to serve your communities. We have about 20% of you are sort of from academia, industry, or other. Pretty much all of you are from the United States, although we do have global representation. And so for those of you who this is at an odd time, thank you so much for waking up for this. The majority of you seem to work in land and public administration and planning, as well as public works. And that it seems pretty split here in terms of populations under 25,000 at about 40% of you, and the other 40% of you are populations over 100,000. So it seems like we have a lot of diversity that's here. And so we are just really thankful that you have taken this time to be able to come, learn, and join the conversation. So I'll be guiding the conversation today. I'm going to be handing it off to our next presenter here in a moment. But as you have questions, please keep track of those. And at the end of the presentation today, there will be an opportunity for you to ask those questions. So without further ado, I'm now going to hand this off to Randall René from Esri.
Well, hello, everybody, and thanks for that amazing introduction. I'm going to share my screen here momentarily. I'm going to talk today a little bit about, location technology and how we can extend reliable broadband and utilities to those who need it most, whether it's within our existing footprint or to expand to rural areas, for instance, such as what's happening with BEAD. Why do I do what I do as industry director in telecom? There was a time where I lived in a car when I was a teenager with my parents and my sisters. So having reliable access to stuff like this or opportunity for access to things that can better our lives are really something I'm passionate about and driven to be able to do. So my role here in Esri, I'm part of our infrastructure group. So I'm part of our utilities, architecture, engineering, construction, water, gas, electric, and telecom. And when we look at what we can do at Esri to help in this space, to help provide opportunity to folks, we think about our world and how it's a complex and highly interdependent ecosystem. All of our companies and all of our folks we're trying to help, we're all trying to live in and work in this environment. And it's rapidly changing and continually evolving. But ultimately, reliable utilities and broadband infrastructure, for instance, it's going to play, as it already does, that major role in our future. How are we looking at some of these problems right now? Well, for instance, the IIJA, when it was approved, and these billions of dollars that the federal government said, let's help connect people to what's important in their lives. Let's help improve our infrastructure. What you see on screen here is a simple way GIS can be used to gain real-time understanding or clarity of a problem, to be able to see the amount of dollars associated by state or by even down to the household level, the kind of things that need to be done. That kind of understanding allows us to eliminate perceived problems, rely mostly on facts of the problem, and allow us to avoid any kind of personal or professional bias towards a problem. We can work together to bridge that digital divide or to provide reliable services and utilities. Now, utilities and telecom have an obligation to serve. There's widespread regulations at the state and federal level that determines how and where and when services should be provided. But there's also profit models that have to be met. There's also these tremendous amount of collaboration needs to happen. What I show on screen here is really what it takes these days for these kind of problems of this magnitude to be solved. On the analyzing and funding of, for instance, broadband access, you have the government, whether it's fed, state, local, these counties working together to understand the problem, to be able to look at demographics, to be able to look at things telecoms or utilities can't, and then work with telecoms and utilities to provide those networks, to understand the build schedules, to help with permitting and ensure projects are on target, and that really ultimately no one's left behind, whether intentionally or inadvertently. Now, I've spent over 25 years in the telecom industry leveraging GIS to help solve these problems and to ensure that we're connecting communities equitably. But to connect communities equitably first requires to gain understanding before we take any action. We have a heck of an opportunity in the US and really throughout the world to leverage these social programs and government programs to provide opportunity to folks. But it requires leveraging location to be able to pull in these seemingly disparate data sets so that we can compile a better lens of the community and the operational environment. At Esri, we, whether it's cities or states or utilities, our software is used widespread throughout just about every industry globally. For an Esri customer, the Esri curated data that lives within the Living Atlas is a tremendous value for folks to be able to understand things such as natural disasters or environmental factors, demographics, data that's curated from states and federal government sources, and even FCC broadband data, to then understand where an issue may reside. Then being able to, as an organization, bring in your existing data, whether it's project boundaries or maps or your existing service customers, even problems that you have within the community. And then the widespread variety of third-party data sets, whether it's satellite imagery, visual, LiDAR, or drone captured imagery, even equitability analysis reports that are done by third parties in data sets. Each one of these becomes a layer in GIS that allows us to build a picture of contextualized information that, again, eliminates bias, it eliminates a lack of understanding, so that together we can connect communities a little better. These simplified workflows and timelines that we see happening between state and local governments and telecommunications or utilities, it's remarkable to see how creating partnerships between entities that historically didn't talk as much or share information as much, because maybe they had more of a accountability relationship. This sharing of information between public and private companies, as you see in the middle, and leveraging combined resources is allowing, regardless of the side of that figure 8 circle you're on, the ability to gain real-time collaboration and communication regarding where issues are, builds that should happen. If I only have so much capital to invest in helping to solve a problem, where should I apply it so that it has its most the most impact, most positive impact, it provides the most opportunity. This analysis and visualization, all of us have that ability and desire to have contextualized information before us, before we make a decision. GIS is allowing these organizations to do this and explore and discover information like never before. But what does it look like in this market? I want to cover, or in this segment where we talk about providing equitable services and utilities and telecommunications. Well, there's two big factors that stand out to me. First is sustainability, and the second being resiliency. We want to make sure that we're providing access, but we also want to make sure that we're being good stewards of our community and of our environment. We want to reduce environmental impact. What you see on screen on the lower right is your pretty typical build out of utilities and communications infrastructure. The markings on the streets, the tore up sidewalks, the businesses that people can't get to because there is construction on the street. These are all factors that add up to a combined limitation of opportunity to folks. So we want to leverage GIS, leverage combined resources, work together so that we can reduce touch points, gain better understanding, and improve productivity. And ultimately, we want to understand the actions we're going to take in the environment so that we can reduce the overall impact as we are providing utilities and telecommunications infrastructure. Another big section, and what we're talking about today, and you'll hear more from some of the folks on the call, is about building responsibly and resiliently, pardon me. What you see on the screen is, for instance, demographic data, being able to dive into data and understand, however you like, what is it that you're looking to gauge? Is it equitable access to, say, broadband, or is it lead within water pipes? Whatever it is, you're able to gauge that issue rather quickly against demographics and better understand the needs. That understanding allows you to, again, connect communities responsibly and be able to ensure that you're doing so resiliently. What I mean by resiliently is, are you going to build a network that could be taken down by floods, fires, hurricanes, tornadoes, etc.? There's things we can do to analyze that kind of impact in GIS, that kind of risk, and then mitigate that in our planning and build out of our networks. As we get down, towards the end of my segment, I want to share a couple of the sites that some states are doing that are just outstanding in their area for providing transparency and understanding in the broadband sector, which is my specialty. The state of the industry, where folks are really working to gain understanding, again, before taking action. We see things like grant dashboards in the lower left, where you have almost $41 billion. That's a tremendous opportunity for us to connect society. But again, we need to understand where that money would have the most impact, and that we're doing so equitably And that transparency of where we're going to build, when we're going to build, and how we're going to build is critical these days. And the center being able to have crowdsourced data that allows people to show in real time the status of their broadband at their location. This is valuable to telecommunications service providers. I wish I would have had information like this when I was, when I was in the industry. The ability to then on the far right to provide that broadband, that broadband community report, to be able to transparently show your region. This is where we're connecting, this is who we're connecting, and these are the timelines associated. And this is how much it's going to cost. We need these on both sides, whether it's state and local governments or the telecommunications providers, to ensure that we're taking care of people and again, providing that opportunity. If you want to take a look at a few states, I suggest taking a look at South Carolina, North Carolina, Wyoming State Broadband Program, and West Virginia. These are all broadband driven solutions that are here. But again, the same exact methodologies can be done within any utility, really any industry. This will help you better understand, for instance, the grants that are being offered within the states. And then at that rooftop level, combined with demographic data, who and where that money should be applied. So at the end here, how can you take action in this space? Well, first and foremost, establish relationships. If you don't know the telecoms in your area or the utilities in your area, get to know them, share information, connect with the Esri team, and then let's leverage those combined resources. For it's those combined resources back in the day that helped me, my family, and now provide the opportunity for me to talk to you today. We can do the same for our communities. I'd like to go ahead and now turn it over to Michael. Michael Brown is one of my esteemed colleagues here at Esri, and look forward to hearing what you have to say, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you, Randall. Great. So I'm a member of Esri's ArcGIS solutions team. So on top of all the great resources that Randall just showed, I wanted to talk about how you can kind of jumpstart your efforts using ArcGIS solutions. So if you have ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise, you can get access to ArcGIS solutions up here in this app launcher. Scroll down and click the solutions button, and that will launch the ArcGIS solutions app. So in this app, we have a bunch of industry-specific configurations of Esri technology. So what does that mean? We have foundational solutions for a lot of utilities. So thinking data management, so management of all of that spatial data for water, stormwater, broadband infrastructure, et cetera. But we also have state and local government focused solutions. So really just a plethora of different use cases. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can really get started with these configurable apps that you can find by just searching here. So I'm the product owner of a couple solutions I'll talk about today. One of those is broadband outreach. So here I can find out more about broadband outreach. There's a product demonstration video, as well as some slides and images with the capability and apps that I can quickly deploy by clicking this button right here. So when I click deploy now, I'm going to get a copy of all of this into my ArcGIS Online organization. So here I have the broadband outreach solution. And if I open that up, I will see that copy that gets deployed when I click deploy now into my organization. So there's a website with a bunch of different mapping applications. And if I open those up, there is a ArcGIS hub site. So this is really a template for our users to be able to quickly configure for their broadband office and organization. So there's some high level metrics tied to base layers. So users can manage data in here for their broadband projects. And like Randall showed, even crowdsource data from their community by allowing users to run a speed test. There's some basic verbiage in here so users can just kind of get up and running with building their website and get some inspiration so that they don't have to kind of create this from scratch. So the survey that Randall showed in his slides links out here. So we have a copy of that speed test survey so users can quickly deploy this and allow their community to run it to really crowdsource speed test information. Esri worked with the Colorado Broadband Office to deploy a version of that hub site and really enrich it with their own data and vision. So this is that site right here. So navigating the Colorado Broadband Office mapping hub, you can see their metrics and even run a speed test if you live in Colorado, and help the Colorado Broadband Office really leverage those BEAD funds. So with the Infrastructure and Jobs Act, there were over $60 billion allocated to be given to states to be able to distribute to broadband providers and communities to really install fixed line broadband, but also solve for issues with digital access and digital literacy. So Colorado is using those funds in a number of different ways. So they're really trying to share that data out with internet providers so that you can find an area to try to make a business case for new fixed line broadband installations. So really showing the FCC map data on top of all of the different data sources that the Broadband Office has cleaned up and aggregated. But there's some other programs on top of this. Sorry, getting a little interference with the Zoom tab up top. So there's a state digital equity capacity grant. So part of that funding from the EJA Act are funds that will be given out to help increase digital access and digital literacy for each state. So Colorado's come up with a plan to apply those grants called the Digital Access Plan. So using demographic data, Colorado wants to prioritize communities and programs to incentivize training so that folks have improved digital literacy and even support access to devices and things for just digital access. So here we can see some demographics that the EJA Act specifically calls out in terms of comparing this data to try to prioritize communities. Sorry. One more example of this is the California Middle Mile Broadband Initiative. So California is really bringing in that FCC broadband access data and using that to implement a broadband installation initiative across the state so that high-speed internet, kind of the root of the system, will be installed so that users and providers can tap into this network to really increase equity and access across the state. So another solution that I'm responsible for is called the Social Equity Analysis Solution. And with the Social Equity Analysis Solution, Esri worked with GARE, which is the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, and a number of cohort communities to really figure out how we could create a solution to increase capacity of organizations with equity in mind. So this is a toolkit that came out of that. So when you deploy this solution, there's a set of desktop tools using ArcGIS Pro. So that's what I'm jumping into here. And these tools have tasks to really walk users through how to get up to speed with some sort of social equity analysis. So just to show a quick example, you can bring in demographic data here. So there's Living Atlas, which Randall mentioned before, which are authoritative data sets offered by other Esri customers and organizations. But Esri also curates our own demographic data. So we kind of clean up and offer access to a lot of different variables. So more than 8,000 different demographic variables, including ACS and census data, as well as other data that Esri cleans up and kind of aggregates so that our users can quickly just enrich whatever different data sets they have and bring that in for some sort of analysis and overlay. So here, what I did was actually brought in the variables that Colorado is using for their digital access plan. So we can see those here. So households in a low income tier, senior population, folks who have language challenges, veterans, etc. And when I bring that data in, I can aggregate that onto these block group boundaries or any other boundary data set. So this could be counties, zip codes, etc. So when I add those on, what's getting added is actually metrics based on what I've selected over here using the Enrich tool. So all of this data, including race and ethnicity data, can be brought in, and I can use that for any sort of means I want. I can create maps, or I could create some sort of index to really compare those things spatially. So what we use in the social equity analysis toolkit is a tool called Calculate Composite Index. So this allows us to create a composite index. So just for a high level example, we can bring in all those different variables for Colorado. We could weight them if we would like, and produce different outputs. So we can create just a kind of default map to look at the index that gets created, or we can create minimum and maximum values. So if we wanted to see a digital access index for Colorado based on block group, we can bring all of these variables in and combine them and then see how this is distributed. So as the state of Colorado, I can come in and I can start to look and prioritize communities based on these demographic variables. So down here, we see kind of the darkest areas in the state. So this is Costilla and Conejos County. And if I wanted to distribute funds, I would know that these are high priority areas, and I could dive in a bit deeper, on top of the demographic data and broadband data. I can now overlay that with the FCC broadband data, the crowdsourced data coming from my community, and start to help make business decisions, prioritize grant funds for those communities, and really start to work with providers to try to build out access and literacy in those communities. So just to close this out, jumping back to one of Colorado's apps. So if we kind of come in and filter for Conejos County, if we click here, we can actually see that the county is served by broadband, but they actually have a low, high speed percent served comparatively to the rest of the state. So maps just help us kind of create that common language to combine all these different data sets. That location is the piece that really ties all of this together. Great. So I'm going to pass it on to Noah Golinko from Bad Elf. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. My name is Noah Golinko, and let me start my presentation here. All right, so thanks for that introduction, Michael, Juliana, and Randall. My name is Noah Golinko, and I'm with Bad Elf. I'm a geospatial enablement specialist, work on the geospatial enablement team. I'm going to talk today about how Bad Elf and Esri partnered to make high accuracy data acquisition and empower people to bolster their social equity using Esri tools. I'm going to do a demo of one of the Esri solutions that has a spatial component, or a GNSS component. So I'm going to show how our hardware can bolster a solution from Esri. And I just want to reiterate what Michael said, that these Esri solutions are just real turnkey solutions that can be deployed in under a minute, that will give you all the data that you need, and all the formats and whatnot. So later on, I'll show a hub site that we made that is an example of what can be done. So who is Bad Elf? This is going to be my agenda for the presentation. So I'm going to start out by talking about a little bit of history of our company. Then I'm going to do a demo of an ArcGIS solution that GAS has built. And then I'm going to talk about how high accuracy and GIS can enhance resilience, safety, and social equity. Then I'm going to talk about what a digital system of record is. So Esri ArcGIS is a digital system of record, and I'm going to explain a little bit about how we can plug high accuracy data into that. And then we're going to talk about how Esri and Bad Elf partnership can help your agency get done what they need to get done. So who is Bad Elf? So Bad Elf we're about a 14-year-old company. We started actually as the first company to provide external GPS to iPads for pilots. So when the iPad first came out, it did not have GPS, and pilots have a need to have own-ship recognition for their pilot logs. So that's how we started. We started as the first plug-in GPS, and then from that we moved on to mapping grade GPS, and so that plugged right into Esri products. We work with the Esri field maps team pretty closely and then we got into surveying and GIS consulting. So we're a full GIS consulting business. We can help you deploy an Esri solution. We can answer any questions that you might have. And then we are also a GNSS hardware manufacturer. So that combined is what Bad Elf does. Well, I'm on the Geospatial Enablement team, so we're a consulting team that helps you deploy high accuracy and ArcGIS. So Bad Elf is a longstanding Esri Silver partner. We have many specialties, as you can see here. State and local government is sort of our main focus. Nonprofits, federal small business. We work with a lot of federal entities. All right, so I did a little pre-recording here. I wanted everything to go smoothly, so I pre-recorded my presentation. So I'll stop it as I present it, and I'll explain what's going on here. So in the beginning here, this is what's called the GIS As-Built Assignment Center. So this is when you deploy the GIS As-Built solution, you get a turnkey solution that includes this thing called the Assignment Center. So this demo starts off as the desktop worker. So I'm, say, a GIS analyst in the office, and I am creating a work order for one of my field technicians. So as you can see here, we go down and we draw the project area. And then we assign it a project number and some metadata. And then we assign it to a field worker. So this next aspect is something called ArcGIS Workforce. This is a wonderful tool that you can use to manage your whole field worker crew. It'll give you live location of them, and it'll allow them to take work orders, fill in all the field data for the work order, and then complete it, so you know it back as the GIS analyst what is going on with your field workers. So as you can see here, I created an assignment for myself. I am the sole worker in this solution. So you see that this is the location. I gave it a critical priority. I assign it the ID, and I create the assignment. Okay, so the next part of the video is me taking on the role of the field worker. So this is a screen recording from my iPhone. So first, we make sure that we're connected to our Bad Elf Flex. This is our flagship device. This is the survey grade device that has the capability of doing RTK corrections. So as you can see here, we use our partnered service Point One Navigation to make sure that we have centimeter level of accuracy. Takes just a second. So you see here on the bottom of the screen, we have what's called an RTK fix. So then we know that we're in high accuracy. And you can see here that we're less than an inch of accuracy. So then we go to the Esri Workforce app. And you can see here that we have the critical priority new as-built project to go and inspect the new facility site. So I'm going to accept that job. And then I'm going to start it. And then I jump right to field maps from that. So once we get to field maps, we have to make sure that we're set up to collect high accuracy data. So this is an important part that we select the BADL Flex as our provider. But as you can see here, we don't have the BADL Flex as our provider, so we need to add it. So we're going to click the add button in the top right. We're going to add it. We're going to tell it the antenna height. And then we're going to notice, oh, see there that we had an incorrect location profile. So that is because we're collecting data in NAD 83. So we have to set up a transformation within Esri field map. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I already have a profile preset, so I'm just going to go ahead and select it to translate from NAD 83 to WGS 84, which is what Esri field maps uses. So you can see here, I went to the drop pin. I started my data collect, or actually, first I'm going to navigate. I'm going to use the feature of stakeout. So I'm going to navigate to the actual place to make sure that I'm in the exact right location. And then I'm going to collect a gas as-built. So you can see I'm doing line vector geometry here. And now I've got, oh, sorry, it went really quick there at the end. But as you can see at the end, we have all the metadata that is associated with our high accuracy, right? So this is the solution automatically collects this extra metadata so that we can defend our data if we need to. All right, so that's the end of that demo. So what does high accuracy and GIS mean for resilient safety and social equity? So an accurate inventory of assets such as infrastructure, buildings, natural resources, this is going to be essential for effective asset management and community planning. And then when we combine GIS with asset inventory data, that enables our organization to prioritize rehabilitation, replacement, and maintenance efforts based on need, lifespan, and criticality. So high accuracy GNSS provides precise mapping of assets, improves spatial analysis, enhanced asset monitoring, and efficient maintenance. And then that GNSS technology supports utility locating, infrastructure management, and disaster preparedness, contributing to community resilience and safety. So what do we get by integrating GIS? Organizations can maximize the impact of their asset management and community safety initiatives. And then precise positioning data can enhance monitoring and emergency response within GIS applications, so within Esri solutions and ArcGIS. And then the integration ensures more informed decision-making, optimized resource allocation, and improved resilience, natural disasters, and other emergency situations. So when we look at the social equity lens to GIS-based initiatives, they can promote fairness, inclusivity, and justice. And then they can also identify disparities in access to resources and prioritize interventions in underserved communities. So more equitable and resilient communities, targeted interventions, fair distribution of public safety resources, and these are things that are essential for building a more equitable and resilient communities. So how does BADL help with this? Our GNSS hardware is very affordable, and these affordable solutions are available to all communities. So why do we need a digital system of record? Transparency. Digital systems of record can provide transparent and easily accessible records of various aspects of society, such as government services, healthcare, education, and employment opportunities. This transparency helps ensure fairness and accountability in the distribution of resources and opportunities. And by digitizing systems of record, as seen in the gas bill, we increase accessibility. And then we can streamline processes by increasing efficiency, making it easier to navigate complex systems and access resources that are needed. And this can help reduce barriers to social mobility and improve overall equity. So data-driven decision-making, because digital systems of record can generate vast amounts of data. So this can help empower agencies to make decisions based on the data, as Michael mentioned in his presentation. And we can create reduced bias by standardizing procedures and using algorithms to automate certain tasks. Digital systems can mitigate the influence of unconscious biases that may exist in traditional manual processes. And overall, a digital system of record can help level the playing field. So how do we get there? I work on the Geospatial Enablement team at Bad Elf. My team was formed specifically to enable local governments and utilities to adopt these complex solutions while minimizing barriers to entry. We help your utility or municipality go from 0 to hero. That's our motto. Leverage our expertise for your benefit. We take the hits so you don't have to. So we provide a turnkey process, helping our customers choose the right products, solutions, and services. Get offers consulting packages, and we utilize ArcGIS solutions for maximum value. So how do we create digital systems of record? Well, we use GNSS receivers. So this is our product line. We have the Bad Elf Flex and the Flex Mini. They come in standard and extreme configurations. And they go all the way from about 2 meters of accuracy down to less than a centimeter, as was seen in our demo. So this is a link to our Bad Elf hub site. If you want to take a look at some of the projects we've done and some of the things that we can do for you, just go ahead and scan that QR code. You can also get there from our website, bad-elf.com. And there you can see everything we have. And that's all for my presentation. I will pass it on to Vivek Sakhrani, and I appreciate, oh, sorry, there's my poll. Let's go ahead and fill that out, and then we'll talk about it at the end.
Thanks, Noah. Yeah, the folks at Bad Elf would really appreciate it if you could just let us know what you know about geospatial solutions. So go ahead, and Vivek can come on, and I'll go ahead and end this poll in a few minutes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Noah, for the excellent presentation, and to all the other speakers as well. My name is Vivek Sakhrani. I'm Vice President for Data and Analytics at a company called Atlas AI. I really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about what Atlas AI is doing in the area of equity and inclusive growth. In particular, one aspect I'd like to introduce into the conversation today is the role of geospatial artificial intelligence. What can Geo AI do for equity and inclusive growth analysis in the context of utilities and public sector work? Let me just begin with some quick definitions, as I'm sure AI is everywhere in the news and may also be on your mind. What can AI do for us? So artificial intelligence is, broadly speaking, technology that enables machines to analyze data, learn from that analytical work that it automatically performs, and then use that to complete complex tasks. Now, typically, the types of complex work that artificial intelligence tools are built for require human-like understanding. We say human-like, not human, because the human mind works in magical and complex ways, and we can take some of these mechanisms and teach machines how to do it. One of the analogies I like to use is that AI is doing for many different kinds of work what Google search did for retrieving information from libraries and knowledge bases. There used to be a time where to look up subject matter information, we had to go to encyclopedias and libraries, and Google search democratized that. It placed all of that knowledge at our fingertips with a few keystrokes. So what it did was enhance human intelligence, not replace it. And artificial intelligence can perform that function if deployed well. Geospatial artificial intelligence is then a subset of AI that's specifically designed to work both for and with geographic data. In particular, as Juliana mentioned, place becomes very important. So geospatial AI is designed to handle constructs of place, but also very importantly, time. And being able to extract information from big data sets like satellite imagery or GPS and GNSS feeds like Noah described, and then using this to predict location-specific events and changes. So where should that next investment take place based on a forecast of what's likely going to happen in our community, or what is the consequence of a particular investment or operating policy given some scenarios and possible outcomes. Atlas AI's mission is to promote inclusive growth. This is our way of considering equity, the idea that no one is left behind, and that we're able to shine a light on both opportunity as well as risk in the context of a rapidly changing planet. What's shown on the screen is a very specific data product that Atlas AI uses GeoAI to produce. We call it the Atlas of Human Settlements. It's a high-resolution map and visualization of every building in the urban context. So in this case, we're showing an example using Washington, D.C. As you can see the familiar layout of the city, you'll realize that many of these building identifications are often at the sub-parcel level, which gives us incredible detail and granularity into the built environment. Just as one example of a GeoAI-based data product that is developed using satellite imagery and artificial intelligence techniques. In today's talk, I'd like to cover three main ideas. The first one is that geospatial assessment is enhanced, limited by the input data. This is very familiar to most in this audience as you work with GIS and other spatial data applications day in and day out. Quality and resolution matters, both in space and in time. In this case, we think about how our geospatial analysis is only as good as the data products that we use in our platforms. So Michael showed us many examples of how geospatial data were curated and made available through Esri's Living Atlas and other platforms. In this case, we're thinking about how to go deeper and faster to look at high-resolution analysis-ready data that's produced without those human interventions and made available directly into your platform of choice for analysis. The second idea is about equity and inclusive growth and how rapidly these patterns are changing. There's two ways in which these patterns change. The first one is chronic, changes that take place gradually over time. The last 5 years have made to us tragically and painfully obvious that communities are changing as a result of public health and as a result of economic changes. We're well aware today that the people are no longer where the jobs used to be, and the jobs are often moving away from where the people are today. How do we keep track of these implications for social equity and resilience? Often we need to frequently update these studies, but connecting this back to our first point, if the data are not granular and refreshed enough, it introduces barriers for informed decision-making. At Atlas AI, we therefore run our geospatial AI models passively and both on demand in the cloud so that these studies for utility and planning applications can be refreshed frequently and on demand. The third main idea is that geospatial AI automates both data production, but also the downstream studies. These tools are available to all of you today for monitoring your regions and jurisdictions of interest. There was a time, maybe about 10 years ago, when I went to graduate school as an engineering student, and it would take me months to update and complete some of these studies. The state of the technology today makes this possible to accomplish within hours, if not minutes. The main benefit to the community is that geospatial tools are now able to help us augment capacity in organizations where we have limited GIS or spatial data expertise and get the most out of available data and the tooling, and be able to deploy this in your system with very little subject matter training, as long as you have domain experience and have a clear line of sight to the problem that's being solved. Atlas AI produces these solutions for municipal, state, and federal organizations. Shown here are 5 verticals in which these GeoAI techniques, both the data as well as the models, can be put to work. Each of these has pervasive opportunities for equity and inclusive growth. For example, with freight and supply chain, not just understanding congestion and urban densification metrics, but also thinking about air quality. For sustainable and equitable smart cities, thinking about whether the services are being delivered to where the people are. For example, Randall covered a lot about broadband and telecom. Are broadband services being available in the schools and in the public health and healthcare facilities that could benefit from that information and connectivity? Sustainable infrastructure planning is about being able to think through better use of existing utility assets, such as the grid, and so on, with climate resilience and disaster preparedness as well. We're able to do this today because we're building on a vast body of scientific and technical knowledge that's being developed. So shown here are some of the scientific products that Atlas AI has produced over the last decade, and making this knowledge available to the community, but also building on the scientific developments that others are bringing to bear. We're able to take ideas like socioeconomic prediction, which is being able to estimate changes in very granular locations. Causal inference, this is the science of asking the question of why. Did my investment lead to an improvement in equity and well-being? And then geospatial foundation models, which is being able to train models on a vast amount of information and being able to retrieve that information as and when you need it. Here's an example of the granular analysis-ready data, in this case for built environment. This is similar to the map of Washington, D.C. that I showed earlier. In this case, we're trying to address a change detection problem. We'd like to identify how the built environment is changing on the order of weeks and months. For example, being able to identify where new homes are coming up, where there are construction starts, or where communities are expanding and evolving. A second example is the need to update very frequently and at scale. So this is a very clear example of how equity can change dynamically. What's shown here is the extent of a flood as seen through optical imagery. This information, while very valuable, appears in an unstructured format that may not be directly useful in GIS analysis. And what our models do is translate this into the analysis-ready data that is able to depict both the extent of the flood or event itself, as well as the extent of damage that would need to be considered in response or in rebuilding and reconstruction. Here's an example of how some of these high-resolution data products are being increasingly used in a forecasting mode. As we understand changes in population, community-built environment, land use, and land cover, these are able to help us understand evolution in well-being and also inclusive growth, opportunities for developing communities by bringing services and other utility investments. What's shown on the right is an example of our forecasting pipeline. In this case, we're looking at our built environment and population layers for Texas, and then forecasting 12 months ahead which communities at the census tract level are likely to evolve and see an influx of population, which could be an early warning signal for local municipalities and utilities to think ahead about how to adjust their operations or consider new investments in their planning process. This can be done anywhere in the country at scale for this predictable time horizon of 12 months. And these data sets can be packaged and made available in GIS analysis-ready format as a socioeconomic data fabric. So what's shown here is a few different examples summarizing the types of granular and high-frequency data products that I've been describing: human settlements and communities, extent of agriculture and productivity, well-being and inclusive growth as a composite index, access to infrastructure, and then a dynamic behavior of those infrastructure assets, for example, congestion on road networks, and then new industrial as well as public assets that are being introduced into the built environment. In these examples, we always perform and build these data products on a wide area basis. so that local partners and utilities do not have to. So we're able to do these at countrywide extents. We're source agnostic, which means that we're able to use many different types of imagery and data feeds, and scalable across the country. Also leveraging the rich body of satellite imagery and big data sources that have been produced over the last 2 decades, we're able to generate time series data that help you understand how communities have been evolving, which is a very important input into forecasting. This data is then packaged and made available through either through Esri Living Atlas as an option. It can be made available to your local partner like Bad Elf, or any other GIS tool or package that you might be using. You can even use APIs similar to how you may access data from the American Community Survey or from the Census Bureau. In this particular community microsegmentation, the data are harmonized and standardized at the census tract level, and can even be delivered in a more granular format should that be of interest. For example, if you want to pair that with centimeter accuracy data from an organization like Bad Elf. We're also able to combine indicators and metrics on mobility, air quality, and other details that are have not been typically available in standardized GIS formats for mainstream use. These metrics and indicators are being used today by many of our partners to address questions around inclusive growth. So for example, how to make sure that distant communities are able to access limited goods and services, as shown in this map. For example, a particular partner is trying to understand where its consumers and users are coming from in a wide catchment area. I'll very quickly cover a case study which was motivated by proposed investments under the IRA and under the IIJA. So as we think about new manufacturing investments, new plant locations entering communities, many local planners and utility providers have a question about how that's likely to affect their communities and how can they get ahead of the curve and help meet those community needs. What's shown here is an area of upstate New York where we expect to see new investments. And what's shown is a very high resolution sub-census tract level delineation of the population and the built environment. We're also able to use our automated change detection technique to identify how these communities have been rapidly evolving over the last 2 to 3 years, which is an important indicator into where there will likely be growth, which can inform utility planning as well as the delivery of other urban and peri-urban services. You may now also want to be able to translate this information to executives or communicate this information to the community for stakeholder engagement purposes. This information can be readily transferred to your preferred business intelligence tool like Power BI, Tableau, or ArcGIS Online, or story maps if you would like to do it in this format. What's shown here are some of those forecasts that are emerging from this particular case study. As the manufacturing center enters the community, where are there likely to be new jobs, and how is that going to change the equity indices for that community under different scenarios, whether those could be gradual or rapid. As you can see here from the time axis, these are run in forecasting mode, so we're able to look out ahead 15 or 20 years that give us sufficient lead time into understanding how those details should be included in planning and investment procedures. To summarize, we've covered 3 main ideas in this part of the discussion today. The first one is that highly granular data, both in terms of space and time resolution, is really valuable for utility planning and for equity analysis. The second is that given the rapid rate of change, it's becoming more and more important to refresh and reproduce these data sets, but also feed them into analytical models that are able to handle the scale and frequency of updates, for example, using cloud technologies. And the third main idea is that we can make this work in the day-to-day business processes, no matter the size of the organization that we're in or the level of internal subject matter expertise that may exist today. With that, I'll end my presentation here, and I'd like to invite all of the other panelists to join me for the last part of our discussion.
Thank you so much, everyone, for wonderful presentations that you gave. Just, I came away with some really good insights. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat. I have some questions for our panel, as well as there are some ones that have already been put here. So one question that we had was, does anyone have the vision and sort of expertise with implementing full life cycle, which would include the planning, construction, operation, and maintenance of the underground utilities, and attributing it with ASCE 38 and 75 with positional accuracy? I know that that's like a pretty niche and specific question, but I'm wondering either for our Esri folks or for Bad Elf, if you may have some experience or just know some places, or maybe if this person should just reach out to you later.
Yeah, I can talk real quick, Noah, and if you want to add in. I'm one of the industry experts here at Esri that specializes in telecom, but we also have folks that are in electric, gas, water, etc. Each one of the industry directors, we come from the industry. I've, for instance, built, managed, and maintained telecom networks throughout the entire life cycle, following all of the construction rules and guidance, etc. So I suggest just reaching out to me, and if it's regardless of the utility or if it's on the government side, I can connect you with the right folks to help you out from the Esri side.
Yeah, and we can absolutely provide the sort of locational accuracy that is needed for those. Yeah, we can do down to, I've seen as low as 0.05 of a centimeter of accuracy. So we can definitely get you the hardware to get there, and we can also help you navigate those waters as far as a consultant as well. So please reach out.
Okay, great. Thank you. So another question where we had, so a lot of questions sort of about the difficulty of implementation of these services. So, are there ways for non-technical folks to view some of the different things that Esri you showed? Also just like, I'm a single person shop. And so how difficult, so what does it take to actually get some of these solutions up and running to go from 0 to hero?
I love that 0 to hero. When I first was in the industry and I was introduced to GIS, I didn't understand much of what it was. But I quickly found that the way that the tools are developed is quite user-friendly. So behind the scenes, you have a GIS analyst that is able to incorporate data, build data sets, etc. Now, if you don't happen to have a GIS analyst within your organization, Esri has over 4,000 partners that know GIS, know tools, provide services, much like we're on the call with today. And one of those things that we can do is help you add depth of bench to your organization to help with some of these things. When it comes to creating your own web apps or leveraging some of the solutions, right out of the box, the training and development we provide as to our customers is quite amazing. But the usability and the ability to just create a self-service tool, you'll find it's rather surprising how simple some of these things can be. So you can rapidly change your organization regardless of who the end user is. So happy to chat more on that with anybody.
Great, thank you so much. Any other panelists want to join in on that one?
Yeah, I will say that I love that term, Randall, that you used, the depth of bench. We absolutely can help provide that. We have a team of people that mostly hold master's degrees at GIS. I myself have a master's at GIS, and so does everybody else on my team. So we can definitely help you deploy these things. So let's connect after this for sure.
Yeah, if I could add one last thing, Juliana. You'd be surprised how many organizations don't realize they already have GIS, especially in the utilities or state and local government, etc. So I would suggest ask around within your organization. Do we have GIS? Does anybody use GIS? Some organizations have what we call an enterprise agreement that allow a wide variety of things to be used. And you just might not know you already have these tools at your fingertips. So that would be my first stop, is just ask.
I think that is such an important point, Randall, is that just asking around and having that sense of curiosity, where it seems like from the questions we have, that a lot of you are curious about how could I transform my organization with these tools? And so going in with a level of humility and curiosity. I'm also we do GIS consulting, happy to chat with anyone, but also one of the things that I really love doing is connecting folks with other people in similar similar municipalities, right? Where, if you're a 5,000 person municipality, it's helpful to, be paired with somebody who is also in a 5,000 person municipality, because that looks very different than a 10,000 or 500 person. And so having the curiosity to also go and network and find out what's working in other organizations. There's a question in the chat that I just want to address, where someone was wondering if there's going to be a recording of this. And yes, there is a recording that I believe is going to be sent out, as well as I believe it's being put on YouTube. So just to answer that. Another question is dealing with underground utilities. So how can those be mapped using something like the field map application? I've done some of that work with the ground penetrating radar, but maybe someone from the Esri team or Noah could jump in on that.
Yeah, I mentioned that mapping, the common space, right? We're all building within the same space. There's a lot of municipalities that already have their infrastructure in GIS assets and digital assets that you as an organization will be able to pull in and add to. But then there's also the need to send folks to the field and capture information. You mentioned ground penetrating radar or other means. There's even these days, which is pretty incredible, to be able to leverage high quality satellite imagery, be able to leverage AI machine learning to do object detection for various things. So the ability to quickly compile information is there, but where the existing information, but where it doesn't exist, to leverage a simplified workflow that takes from a handheld or field mobile device into now GIS, that is then, if you have a CAD-based permitting system or you have a need to share, you're able to leverage automated tools that translate information too. So I guess my point there is, don't be discouraged if there isn't a data source available, because what is available is a way to leverage modern technology and advanced tools to simplify workflows and get things done faster, but also in a less expensive format.
This is great. And please keep your questions coming in the chat. Brandy, we definitely empathize with you around having that small team, or I guess it's just you, and there's no one to ask. So please feel free to reach out to any of us panelists, where I think we would all be happy to try and connect with you and to assist you. So our next question is for Vivek. So you talked a lot about geospatial AI and how AI can enhance equity and inclusive growth for within our communities. So I'm curious if you could talk about what are some success criteria for putting Geo AI to work to the benefit of communities.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Juliana, and to the audience. I think there are several different success criteria. We can almost rewind maybe 20 years ago as GIS was first being introduced into a lot of our day-to-day applications in utility organizations. And at the time, there might have been sort of the question that Randall had when he was starting out. For example, what does GIS mean for me and what could it do? In the same way as Geo AI is relatively new technology, people have many questions. So I think being open-minded and bringing the curiosity to the table is very important to understand what can the technology already do today, and what are the limitations? How far can it take us today? The second is sort of recognizing that, like with any technology, it's rapidly improving. The community globally that's working on artificial intelligence is quite large and extensive. And that's one of the reasons why we repeatedly hear about this in the news. It's because there's an intense amount of scientific and technological investment taking place, funded by many of our public sector organizations like the National Science Foundation and others. So there's great belief that these technologies will help improve. So recognizing where the state of the capability is and bringing that knowledge into the organization is very important. The third criterion is around the overall organizational mindset. So it's often a pitfall to think that any new technology, when introduced by itself, is automatically going to lead to outcomes. I think we recognize that technology needs to be paired with business processes, with information exchange across entities working in and for the same jurisdiction, and being able to couple the new technology with robust institutional and social processes as well. And then finally, being open to addressing community questions about how is it that utilities and public organizations are able to now do better for the communities that they work in using some of these new technologies.
Great, thank you. Another question that I have for the panel is, do you see a future with all of the utilities within the public right-of-way sharing GIS location along with positional accuracy? And I guess sort of a clarification that was provided to this was, I mean, in a single schema source, you know, that where there's security, but that you could be able to know what is located in that right-of-way.
Yeah, I see Vivek shaking his head yes as well. When you look at and same with Noah and Michael, when you look at the work being done, for instance, in permitting, right, at a national level, to simplify permitting, you need this data in one location, ideally, and it's all digital and it's able to be quickly shared and incorporated. So you see a lot of state and local governments that are transitioning to GIS data sets in their right-of-ways, and they're requiring now, as part of your permitting packet, a shapefile or some asset that allows them to upload and create a GIS, this digital twin of their community. You hear this term digital twin when it comes to Esri and what we do, because you're creating a digital representation of the real world. You're bringing the field or what's out in reality to the desktop or the mobile of a user. So when you get away from those plot maps that show underground infrastructure that you have to take a picture of and then go back to your office and digitize them, holy cow, there's so much of that is still done. And so I understand the question for sure being, when can we get away from that? When can we get this smart city kind of feel, this digital twin? It's coming. It takes time. It takes the digitization of this work that's already existing. And it's going to be your state and local governments that really help push and drive that.
If I can add on to that. So prior to joining Esri, I was the GIS manager for the Public Works Department in San Jose, California. And we actually did a lot of work in the region to try to come up with a single schema across organizations. And it just didn't take, because everyone had their own needs. But really what worked for us was just transparency and like the ability to really like trust and work with each other to share that data. That really helped everyone out. Like it wasn't that we needed to be on this like single public schema. It was just the ability to share that data and update it in real time to other organizations and users that could leverage it. That really, I think, benefited everyone.
I'll just put in an additional word for the quality of the tools themselves. As we might imagine, many of the digital representations are generated to different specifications and standards, and the tooling can increasingly help link that together, even going to the extent of spotting errors and exceptions, especially with line work being very complex and extensive. with hundreds, if not thousands, of attributes in some cases, being able to reconcile this effectively and bring to the human attention for quality assurance on whether these harmonizations are taking place well. So just as the technology is focused on outcomes, it's also very much focused on improving and accelerating the quality of that work.
Great. Those are such insightful questions and answers that we're getting. So again, just a reminder, if you have any questions, please put them in the question and answer box so that we can be able to answer them. So one question that I have is, we've talked a lot about different data, right? So we've talked both about just now like creating that sort of single source of truth. We've talked about collecting data. We've also talked about pulling data from maybe Atlas AI or like leveraging some of that created data as well as Esri data. So I was wondering if each of the panelists could just share a little bit about maybe data, sort of data availability that you think is something that folks should be aware of. So Vivek, if we want to start with you, and then we'll go in sort of a reverse order from how we spoke before.
Yeah, I'll offer a couple of different perspectives on this. So we're in the US, we're already the world leader in having geospatial and GIS data for our communities. The census, the American Community Survey, all of the work that's contributed by local and municipal organizations and other public sector agencies has certainly enriched our efforts in investing in and managing utilities and other public sector assets. And so there's a lot to work with. As the other panelists have said, leveraging what's already available is a great starting point. And then again, in a rapidly changing context, we realized that sometimes those data were collected and prepared for a different purpose and at a different time. And we need to go back and think about how to cost effectively and accurately update that information. So this is where I think the panelists' perspectives have really been complementary. How do we do very high positional accuracy field data collection in the field? How do we enrich what's already available? And then how can we use new technologies that are able to produce data sets automatically and at scale and place those directly at your fingertips in preferred applications that are well designed for your business processes. So while there's already a great body of data and corpus to begin with, we are still very much making new modalities available to be able to address the gaps as our needs evolve.
Yes, you want me to go next, Juliana? Okay, so we've worked with a lot of like the local governments in our area. We're in the Phoenix metro area. That's where I'm based out of, Scottsdale. And we've, experienced a lot of governments that have like a vault that has, scrolls of maps that are folded up in the vault. So we have been really sort of trying to trumpet this idea of collecting high accuracy positional data as new things are being built. So when I demonstrated the GIS as built, we encourage the governments around here, and we're in a very, very rapidly booming area. The Phoenix metro area is growing like astronomically. So we understand that there is a need to sort of translate that old data, and then there's in these very small state and local governments, there's sort of the tribal knowledge that is in one person's head who is on their 30 years and they're about to retire, and getting that data translated into a digital system of record so that that data can be democratized to whoever comes after that person. So that is sort of, we're seeing a generation of people retiring that sort of hold everything in their head. So we're really trying to be there and help adopt these best practices and, just filling the system of record with information that, can be accessed by everybody.
Great point. Just to add on, I think to both of those is a lot of folks like are looking for external data, especially a lot of local governments when they have a plethora of internal data to help make decisions, especially when it comes to prioritization of projects or just knowing where issues exist. So think, code enforcement data, things that are getting reported to the city, those are a wealth of knowledge if you really know how to tap into them and like search them in the right way. So often when we work with organizations and look at social and racial equity, we're looking at these kind of national data sets like ACS and census data. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to that program level. So if you're replacing lead service lines as a water utility, like who are the most vulnerable people to lead service lines? Can we focus on those groups, like looking at children and young kids who, might not have a filter in their home for drinking water, et cetera, or pavement condition? Who's the most vulnerable, not just to bad roads, but like who can't afford to fix their car if they damage their car on a, poorly paved road? So, some of that is national data, but a lot of it's just internal data that organizations have access to, day to day. They just need to know who to ask to really get access.
Yeah, thanks. I love the comments that have been said so far, and I think about the number one thing that we talk about here is just, and I mentioned in my presentation, and that's the need for understanding before we take action in any effort. Our founder, Jack Dangermond, has said that regularly, that it's our biggest problem that we have in society today is just a lack of understanding before we act on something. So in this context of providing reliable and equitable access, much like Vivek and Noah and Michael have said, to be able to combine existing data to then be able to analyze it and learn from it, and best understand where to take action is huge. I think back in my career and about things I had to deal with, such as paper documents. Noah mentioned the vaults of paper maps and documentations. Utilities, governments, every industry has tremendous amounts of legal paperwork, right? That is in these reams and stacks of paper. For instance, we have partners and customers that are excelling in optical character recognition, or that scanning of these documents to then get them into GIS. It's again something that takes a little bit of time, but once you have all of, say, those right-of-way or easement agreements or contracts that allow access to an area, you can then scan that as a data point when you're looking at providing service someplace. So it becomes a factor in being able to make a wise decision. So yeah, it goes back to, do you have GIS in your organization? And how, what do you want to do? And, there's countless folks on the call here that can help you put it to work.
Well, thank you everyone again for the insight that you have provided. We're going to start wrapping things up here, but I did want to just give a moment for if any of the panelists have any last words that they would like to share.
I speak for a living, so I'm not going to be shy. And I'm excited about this, Juliana, because we have an opportunity to really, truly make positive change in our society. There's a lot of dollars available for folks to help folks. So with that, everybody has an opportunity to be a hero in the organization, and to make a great decision. So I'd say just reach out, let us help where we can, connect you to who can help you with some things. And together we're going to be able to really provide opportunity and a better way of life really for folks. There's no reason we can't be proactive in what we do these days. We've been reactive in a lot of ways for a lot of years, but we don't have to anymore. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. The work that you all are doing and that we're thinking about these, it really matters, right? Day in and day out. I primarily work with local health departments. And so we see the downstream impacts of lack of access to utilities, to whatever, and the ways that impacts people's health. So I'm just really thankful that so many of you have come and stayed and been part of this conversation. And are just really thankful that you're beginning to think. And I would love to help anyone think through these questions as you move forward.